The names of the U.S. military members killed in Jordan have been released. More injuries are also being reported. The Pentagon unveiling new details about the deadly drone strike on U.S. troops. The White House vowing to retaliate. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good evening, Iris. So what did we learn today about the Sunday attack, and how is the United States responding and planning to respond?
Good evening to you, Steve. The Pentagon today has now announced the names of all 3 American service members who were killed in a Sunday drone attack on a U.S. base in Jordan. They were 46-year-old Sergeant William Rivers, 24-year-old Specialist Kennedy Sanders, and 23-year-old Specialist Brianna Muffett. All of them were from Georgia. And the father of the 24-year-old Kennedy Sanders saying today that their family was going to celebrate her homecoming in just a few months. Meanwhile, also today, the injuries reported climbed to 40, and the Pentagon is saying that it's trying to investigate how the drone was able to cause such damage. Watch.
We are still assessing what happened and how a one-way attack drone was able to impact the facility. We're not going to discuss further specifics or measures we're taking to prevent such actions or future attacks.
The Sunday incident is believed to be the deadliest attack on U.S. forces since the 2021 Afghanistan withdrawal, in which 13 U.S. service members were killed. Meanwhile, both the White House and the Pentagon say that they believe Iran is the one behind the attack, which is directly carried out by the militant group in the region. But as Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is calling on President Biden to directly strike Iran, the White House is saying today that it does not want to go into war with the Iranian regime. Watch.
We do not seek another war. We do not seek to escalate. But we will absolutely do what is required to protect ourselves, to continue that mission, and to respond appropriately to these attacks.
And President Biden vowed on Sunday that we shall respond. The White House saying today that President Biden is weighing his different options as he's facing a challenge to balance the need to protect our interests and the need to avoid a war. Meanwhile, Democratic lawmakers are agreeing that the priority is to avoid a war, while some Republican lawmakers are criticizing the Biden administration for being too weak in response. Here are what both sides are saying. Watch.
They want a war. We don't want to play into their aims. We want to stop a war, not start one.
The administration, quite frankly, has acted so weakly. So absolutely, we do need to react in a way that will deter further attacks.
And the White House today pushing back against the GOP criticism, saying that it's following a doctrine of appeasement. The White House says that's absolutely not the way how they see it. Back to you.
NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao reporting from the White House. Thank you, Iris. So is Iran behind the killing of the 3 U.S. service members in Jordan? And would a simple warning suffice to deter their aggression? To try to find out, we're happy to have Kash Patel, a senior advisor to former President Trump for national security, defense, and intelligence. Kash Patel, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me back on the program.
Of course, Kash. The war drums seem to be banging with 3 U.S. servicemen killed in a drone attack in Jordan. The president calling them Iran-backed militants responsible for this. Who was it ultimately, do you think, and how easy is it for Iran to give them, if in fact it was sponsored by them, the word to simply stand down?
It's Iran. And it's ironic and tragic and sad that this president, who gave Iran the keys to $6 billion just 3 months ago, is now saying, or his national security advisor then said, that the Middle East has never been more at peace. And now we have the second set of U.S. soldiers killed in wartime operations in the span of 3 weeks. And now we have the president, Joe Biden, who called Iran last week and said, I'm giving you a warning that there's going to be attacks in your country by terrorist organization. This is how they reward us. This is how they repay us, by striking us. It was Iran. There's a reason there's the largest state sponsor of terror. And Joe Biden failed to deliver on protecting the American public because he called this group a bunch of rebels and he delisted them as a terrorist organization.
Kash, how concerning is it that our enemies, whether or not they are state actors or not, I mean, if you believe Iran, they aren't, but probably they are, even still, that they're able to execute such an attack and operation with drones, no less?
Yeah, people need to pause and see how sophisticated an attack this was. We're talking about unmanned aerial systems and drones, and we're not just talking about the munition itself. We're talking about a deployment vehicle, as we call them, with the capability to issue a precision strike in the middle of nowhere, northern Jordan, mind you, not Syria, Jordan. And let's see what the Jords do after all the money and assistance we've given them over the years. See if they'll have our backs. And it's alarming because the money that the Biden administration allotted for the Iranian regime is being used by Iranian proxy forces, Hamas, Hezbollah, who started the war in Israel, and of course the Houthis down in Yemen continue their tirade against American forces. Look, you can't make up 140 separate attacks and strikes on U.S. military installations and bases in a span of 60 days. You can't just make that up. It is time, intelligence, and a planned commitment to attack the enemy, which is what Iran is doing. And now they've taken it to the next level, and we have no response.
Cash, what can the United States do to get Iran back in line? What Trump-era policies do you believe kept them at bay? Because ultimately there were no major issues. You're
right. Donald Trump recognized Iran for what they were, the largest state sponsor of terror, and treated them as such, and killed Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Quds Force, and treated the Houthis as terrorists by naming them a foreign terrorist organization and letting us kinetically operate against them and collect intelligence. And on top of that, Donald Trump issued sweeping sanctions, both economic against the Iranian regime and Ayatollahs, and also against the leadership and companies throughout Iran, suffocated them from the global banking system, and went to our allies and said, all of these people are now sanctioned in the United States. If you do business with them, you are cut off from the United States. And Joe Biden comes in and literally turns it off. And our Secretary of Defense is, MIA for 5 weeks and lying to the world. And we have a multitude of attacks and a commander-in-chief who is completely feckless, and I think down in Miami fundraising. And it took him 2 weeks just to acknowledge the deaths of U.S. service members tragically in the Red Sea, in an operation he should never have launched. So I don't have faith, and I don't even want this command structure leading us into war. Cash, lastly, I want to get your thoughts on another war that's being waged, arguably, which is on our southern border. Secretary Mayorkas likely to be impeached. Is the hope that this will draw more attention to this issue? I think it's a timely issue because the southern border has been open since Biden stepped into office. Secretary Mayorkas has lied 14 times under oath when he said it was secure. Biden has said the same thing and echoed the same sentiments, and now it's open. And now they're saying, oh, if MAGA Republicans would only pass legislation, we could fix the border and he could act. Joe Biden has all the authorities he needs to act. He refuses to act, and he continues to play politics with the lives and safety of our children and our service members and our agents down on the border. DHS Secretary Mayorkas and Chris Wray admitted 2 months ago to Congress that 24 known foreign terrorists illegally entered the southern border, and the FBI and DHS don't know where they are today. This is all interconnected. Iran, the CCP, and Russia and our enemies are doing a multitudinal attack against the United States of America overseas and on our border, and now we have them in our communities, and we don't even know where they are. Very alarming stuff. Kash Patel, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Steve, always great to be with you. Have a good day. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin returned to the Pentagon today and met with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Austin took the opportunity to address the deadly attack on U.S. troops in Jordan.
Let me start with my outrage and sorrow for the death of 3 brave U.S. troops in Jordan and for the other troops who were wounded. The President and I will not tolerate attack on U.S. forces, and we will take all necessary actions to defend the U.S. and our troops. This was Austin's first time at the Pentagon in about a month. He was hospitalized for 2 weeks this January for complications from a surgery to treat prostate cancer. The defense chief failed to report his absence to President Biden for days. This has fueled concerns over national security, many lawmakers calling on Austin to resign. After being released from the hospital earlier this month, Austin had been working from home. Austin said he's still recovering but feels good and is glad to be back at the Pentagon. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.